Yeah, are you sharing it from your home team?
This is on my page, Morgan J, but I'm gonna share it to your home team page. I'm gonna share it to all my pages. Okay, I think it's live, but let me just. Okay, let me just make sure. All right. Okay.
So on the live version, I'm only seeing one person in the screen.
All right. Now I try to fix it.
Got it.
All right. Are you seeing the live?
Yep.
Does it look good?
Looks great.
Thank you, Lakecia, for joining. Thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome.
Guys. Thank you guys for being here. Okay, let me add something. Everybody who's watching, I'll just ask that you guys mute your devices. Anybody who's joining the Zoom, if you could just mute your devices. Thank you guys for joining. I'll just let a couple more people come in. All right. Just let a couple more viewers come in. If you just mind, I'm just looking on my phone to just see. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you Facebook. Thank you to all my friends, family who's watching. Thank you guys. So today we are going to go over the home buying process. We're going to talk a little bit about the market today, like how that affects the home buying process as well. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment them because we're going to address those at the end of the video, at the end of this live. So one thing I'm going to just say to start off, that this market is not the same as how it was 2 years ago. It's very competitive now. So there's a little bit of things that we're doing differently. But I will say before starting your home search, make sure you get in contact with a good realtor who can give you referrals to good professionals that will make sure the process goes as smooth as possible. And today, I have these great people with me, these great professionals that I'm so glad that they joined me. And we'll just start with some quick introductions. I'll go first and then we can go Matt, Ray, and then Alyssa. So my name is Morgan. I'm a realtor with Your Home Team at Hunt Real Estate. And I am coming up on 6 months of being with the team. And I'll include a fun fact about myself. One fun fact about me is that I like zombie apocalypse movies and shows. Matt?
Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew. I am at M&T Bank. I'm actually a mortgage originator here. So if you need financing for any type of home loans or have any questions about mortgages, I'm always here. You guys could always pick my brain. I've been in the industry for about 7 years now, doing mortgages and just in the financial industry itself, actually. Let's see, one fun fact about me, I have a 6-year-old who acts like he's 16. That's a fun fact.
Well, I think we all have those, Matt. I got a 4-year-old going on 40.
Oh, so you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially when they start getting that 4 to 6 range, they get a little bit of their own personality developing.
Yeah, my son this morning, he said, "You just frustrate me so much." That's what he said to me. And I'm like, okay.
Usually our next question is, where did you hear that?
Right? Yes, my name is Rachia Turner. I am a partner at Wallace Turner Law, where we primarily focus on real estate and business law, and we work with a lot of first-time home buyers. And a fun fact about me is I have a 4-year-old going on 40, and I have a little 7-week-old. So that's a fun fact, right, baby?
Hi, my name is Alyssa Hackett. I own Wolf Hollow Home Inspections. I do mold assessments, home inspections, all of that fun stuff associated with that. And I've been in the industry now since 2018. I lost years, so I don't know how. I think that's 3 or 4, maybe. I stopped counting 2 years ago. And then, fun fact about me, I ran off and joined the military when I was 18 without telling anybody I did it until I signed the paperwork.
How did that go for you?
Well, it was right after 9/11, so I was quickly deployed. I'm here today. My thought was, like, even if something terrible happens and, like, I don't make it, at least I get a parade, which was probably a terrible way to think about it at 18. But I was 18, and here we are.
And at least you could get a VA loan.
There you go.
But all right, so get everything all settled out. Sorry, having a little technical difficulties. Okay, so when you start and you decide that you're ready to buy a home, the first thing that I'm going to tell you is to speak with your realtor so that they can put you in contact with some lenders, attorneys, inspectors, insurance agents, so that you know that you're working with a good team behind you. That's the first step before even looking on Zillow, Trulia. That's the first step. The second step is once you decide that you are ready to buy a house, you're going to want to talk to your lender. That's why I brought Matt here today, because you cannot start home searching without speaking to your lender. Just blindly looking for a home in this market is not smart. You might see a home you like. You don't have a pre-approval or a pre-qualification letter. It's going to be pending the next day, 2 days. So you don't have no time to wait. Go get that pre-approval or that pre-qual. Matt, can you tell them a little bit, like, what's the difference between a pre-qual and a pre-approval? Because I had a few people ask me that.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, a pre-qualification is just really letting the borrower know how much you can afford. One of the biggest things that I always do to make sure that everybody is comfortable with their housing payment is to ask them, what have you been paying for rent for the past year, 2 years? Okay, well, I've been paying $1,100, they say. Then they want to come to me and they say, let's do a $250,000 mortgage. Well, just to let you know, your payment may be a little higher than that. Are you comfortable? So the biggest thing is setting your boundaries on your payment. Because the one thing you have to realize when you're going from renting to a mortgage is that you're taking on property taxes. You're taking on a lot more expenses, but you get more benefits from it. You're getting equity in your home. You're having something that you can call your own instead of just paying rent to somebody. Pre-approval letter, that's basically going to say, hey, I uploaded my income documents. They ran everything. It's preliminary. Here's a pre-approval basically that I could shop for the home. So the pre-qual letter in my eyes just tells you how much you can afford. The pre-approval is what you're going to use with the realtors to really help you go out there and submit those offers to get that house.
So what documents should they start putting aside, getting ready to?
Absolutely. So whenever you're doing a mortgage, the two biggest things we look for is 2 years of employment, all right, and then 2 years of your rental history, where you've been living, all right. Granted, you have some exceptions. If you just went to college, you've been living at home, you've been paying rent free, you graduated, and that's a whole different aspect on the income, which I'll touch base on that later. But there's always exceptions. They just want to connect the dots that you have been living somewhere for the past 2 years. It's been consistent, and your employment's been pretty much consistent. In terms of documentation, it really depends. If you're self-employed, if you're salaried, usually if you're a salaried employee and you've been there for at least 2 years, we ask for 2 W-2s. So the past 2 years, and then 30 days pay stubs to start the actual process.
Okay. Make sure you guys are all writing this down, because there's not going to be another opportunity to be like, nah, I'm playing. You can always ask me questions, but write this down. So I did have a question that somebody asked. How much will that, like, how will that affect your credit score after trying to get approved?
Yeah, so usually on a hard inquiry, it really depends. That's tough to say. It all depends on how many hard inquiries that person has done previously. Everybody's
Mhm.
credit's completely different. Usually the average would only be about probably 5 points. It would drop after a hard inquiry. Now, when
Mhm.
you are shopping for a mortgage, it's basically, like a car. That's what I always tell everybody. Usually when we pull the credit, we could see other people have tried to do they went to a credit union or whatnot. I recommend doing that. You want to actually shop for this. This is a big ticket item that you are purchasing. It's long term. You're thinking 15, 20, 30 years down the road. This isn't a simple 7-year car payment. This is a big purchase that you're planning on making. And, my job is to make sure that I get you the best deal possible. So even if you do shop at another place and you like their rate, I always tell everybody, look somewhere else just to see and compare the two. Because even if you have a difference in closing costs, if I could save you $1,000, $2,000 on closing costs, that's $1,000, $2,000 that you could put right back into your home. So I always say, in terms of the credit score, the hard inquiries, it's minimal, but you usually have a time frame. I always try to tell everybody you want to keep it to about 2 to 3 weeks to really do all your hard inquiries on your mortgages. So if you plan, if you bank at SEFCU, do one with SEFCU. If you bank at Bank of America, do one there, but also do them at some other banks too. Ones that have multiple products. For instance, we have over 300 different mortgage products. We're actually the top Sunny Mae lender. We actually service all Sunny Mae loans and write a lot of FHAs. Primarily, most of my business, 90% of it is first time home buyers. So if you're planning on buying a home, come talk to me.
And I'll make sure that all the information, the contact information is provided at the end of the video. But long story short, talk to the lender before even starting the home search because there's no time to waste. There's no time to play, trying to get pre-approved. We can't waste time. This market is very competitive.
I think that's, leading into one of the other questions I know somebody asked, why is a pre-approval important before showing homes? When you're going into these houses, the sellers want to know that you're not wasting their time. They want to know that you're a qualified person that's actually interested in buying their home and you're not just shopping. It's and that's where the realtor, that's where Morgan comes in handy too, because she makes sure one of her first questions, if somebody reaches out to her and says, I want to go see this house, I'm sure the next question she's going to ask is, did you already talk to a lender? Did you already secure financing? And that's just a peace of mind for her and the seller as well. So always having a pre-approval is always good. It gives you an idea of what you could shop for. If I can qualify you for up to $250,000, let's just say, and you're going to look at a house that's $225,000 in this market, it's possible that you're going to be offering multiple bids on that one property. It's competing. Their house is getting 3, 4, 5 offers. So you have to be able to be ready.
Yes. Not only be ready, but you got to shop smart. If your max approval amount is 250, I would not say look at homes that's 249.9 because you're gonna have to expect that you might have to pay a little bit over the asking price if you really want that home. But that's just one of the things that you will have to do when you're submitting your offer to make it competitive. When there's times that there's 3, 4 offers on a home, sometimes 5 or more, you have to pull out all the stops. You have to be prepared, and it's tricky. It's tricky. So that's why you have to trust your realtor. You got to work with a good realtor, good lender. One thing about me is that I like, including the lenders in my offer so that the listing agent will know that the lender is here helping. We're all working as a team. And that's why it's so important to have a good team when you're doing this transaction because it's really stressful and everybody plays a different role. And if one person's not playing their role, then the whole transaction could just go left. But it's not going to go left if you're working with a good team. So say you find a house you like, you place an offer, and it gets accepted, the next step is you're going to want to send that offer over to your attorney. And that's where I will send it over to Ray. Ray, can you tell the buyers a little bit like how you advise them after their offer has been accepted and you've received the signed contract?
Oh, what I like to tell our clients is that it's grind time. Our job is to make sure that they get to the closing table without compromising their interests. So we want to make sure that they fully understand the contract. That's the biggest things. So while Morgan, you would be the one working with them on preparing the contract, we take that contract and we go over it line by line with our clients in something called attorney approval, because I want to make sure they have a full understanding of every term. And if they have questions or something they don't understand, that's when I want them to ask those questions, because this is a big purchase. Say, for example, they do get approved on something that's $250,000. I want to talk to them about things such as, well, what if that appraisal, it doesn't appraise for $250,000. Matt's probably not going to give you the money. That's going to be a problem. What are we going to do in the event that that happens? Also, what are we going to do in the event that there are inspection issues that's over $1,500 or even $1,500, but you have children, right? And those are things maybe we might want to get corrected, even though it doesn't meet the threshold. I like to make sure that they are comfortable with every term. In addition, we work with a lot of first-time home buyers. And so it's a lot of education that we instill upon them. Meaning I tell them, listen, if you guys have questions, pick up the phone, give us a call. Don't enter into anything with the seller, or if it's a buyer, don't enter into any other contracts without first talking to us, because we like to reduce everything into writing. I don't want you to tell me, oh, well, Morgan's my realtor and she said that they said they were going to fix the septic. Oh, they did say that? Okay, well, then let's write that up in a contract. That's what we're going to do, because we need documentation regarding everything. That is super important. But at the same time, I tell them, it's a big purchase, but we are here to guide them and to help them through the process. And so when we get to that mortgage contingency on the contract, it says, okay, you are going to work with your lender to do certain things by X date. If you have any issues, reach out to us, because they're going to likely issue a commitment, and it's going to have things that you're going to need to get that you may not be able to get. Give us a call. We're more than willing to help you, because we want to see you close and we want to see you succeed.
Thank you. So there was just one question. Do you guys handle commercial and residential transactions, or do you just stick to the homes?
So we primarily do residential, but Attorney Wallace does do commercial as well.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, you heard her. The attorney has an important job separate from the agent. I'm not an attorney, so I cannot, speak on the legal, part of things. That's outside of my jurisdiction. But the attorney, if you are wondering about the dates, you might need an extension, contact the attorney and they will get everything handled for you. So once the attorneys, look over the contract, explain it to you, you're good with everything, you're good with the terms, then you're going to want to schedule your home inspection. And I will suggest call Alyssa, because I love her and she does the best inspections.
Oh, thank you.
The other inspectors, they might be mad, but
they're wonderful too. I'm just here to have to say that. We all understand how the game is played. It's all right.
Yeah. So what should they expect? What should they expect when they have an inspection with you?
It's a great question. And it's one that I think comes up a lot, right? Because when people go through and they do a 30-minute walkthrough of their house, even like when we're living in our houses, I think sometimes it's like the air we breathe. We don't really realize all of the different functioning pieces that are there that kind of have to work together to make a safe home. So during the inspection, part of the way that we look at all of these individual components, or at least the way I do it, is I follow like a really, I try to, as much as possible, follow a very like strict order of operations type of thing. So I always start at the outside first and basically work my way from the roof all the way down to the foundation, and then go around even the grounds, looking for trees overhanging the roof or things like pine needles on the roof surface. Pine needles are really acidic and they can interact with the asphalt on the roof surface and cause premature aging of shingles. Similar to like what Ray was saying, I do a lot on education. Like, you know, for her, she's looking at like the education around really maintaining and protecting your best interest via that contract. And for me, I actually am really excited that we're all here talking, because so often I'm like talking to clients and referring them back to their attorney, saying, you have to go back and really have a great relationship with your attorney, or in some cases with your lender, where like, you know, I'm looking at a house where I know they're FHA buyers and saying, I don't know if you have any other options, but I'm seeing like, you know, sellers, the house is in an estate. We've got tons of broken windows here. We've got tons of chipping paint, and you might have to start exploring these things. So I think exactly going back to what you originally said, that team that is really there and can kind of kick the ball back and forth to each other. Because I love, you know, being as much part of the process as is helpful. So I look at all the pieces, top to bottom, inside, outside, foundation, structural, pest. I do all of it, radon testing, well flow testing, and I talk a lot sometimes. So
Do you do septic as well?
Well, I refer septic out. I can do dye testing, and I have contemplated it. I think I want to find a plumber that will do it and eventually offer the service. But you know.
Yeah, I get
I like
it.
leaving the sewer caps on. It smells pretty bad.
I want to add one thing, because I think it's important. So Morgan, you already mentioned that it's a hard market. We want serious offers. You know, you want to put in a serious offer so that it could be accepted. So when I do have my attorney approval call, I explain what the inspection period is to clients, but I also let them know, because there's a $1,500 threshold, right? But I let them know if something is maybe $1,600, it's more than likely that the seller is not going to fix that. And so, you know, we're not going to nickel and dime for every penny, because you are purchasing a home and it's an investment. So you have to be willing to understand those things. Also, you know, I always tell them, you can ask for the sun, the star, and the moon. You can ask for whatever you want. Whether you're going to get it is a different story. And so you're not going to come to me and say, hey, and I tell them at attorney approval, if you tell me, oh, well, they said this costs $1,500 to correct, I want them to correct it. You want to cancel the contract. We're not going to cancel contracts for one thing like that. If we really want it, we're going to sit like adults and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to work out some type of agreement. Maybe you get half, maybe you get more than half, maybe we reach some type of resolution, because if you truly want the house, let's make the deal work, right? And I would hate for you to send me a contract and it has all of these little things in it. I want the clients to know that, listen, this is the reality of it. This is a tough market. Even when sometimes you guys send us clients and they're waiving inspections all the way. And so I'm like, well, at least are you doing a pre-inspection before you actually put your offer in? I like people to know what their options are. And sometimes clients do come to us before they, you know, go to a realtor or before they go to the lender, and ask us, you know, what we think so that their contract can be accepted. And one of those things, you know, people like to do is waive inspections. But I'm like, well, you need to call Alyssa or somebody before you even put that offer in. So if you're waiving inspections, it's like a fake waiver of inspection. Fake. Looks good on paper.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, Ray, because I'm just not a black and white person. I really embrace the gray areas. And I say to all, I said, listen, like, it is my job to place this house in context and to point out, right? And I was just talking before the live version started of this, but like, this is the equivalent of going on a second date with somebody and having them hand you a binder of everything that is wrong with them, right? And if we dated that way, we would never make it down the aisle. It just wouldn't happen, right? So it's like, hey, buyers, listen, I know you're stressed out. I know it seems like everything is in the seller's favor, because that is the reality of the market. And I think sometimes the best thing that we can do is really present that reality as it doesn't necessarily sound nice, you know, because I'm saying, like, you're going to have to make the decision of how far you really actually want to push this issue, because there's 10 other people behind you that want this house right now. And it's a challenge for sure.
So Alyssa, one thing that I'm also noticing too is like buyers, they will increase the inspection threshold to like 3,000, 5,000. What do you think about that from like an inspector's point of view?
So I tend to answer all these questions from like my full point of view. I have actually my educational degrees in social work. And so to be perfectly honest with you, I am in full belief that individuals know what is in their best interest. It is up to them to come up with that. And if that $300,000 threshold is what they're comfortable with, then great. I tend to stay out of that, right? Like I still have, because of the way that this particular market works and the way the game is played, I still, majors are still $1,500 on the report. But then when, it goes through the attorney process, right, you're not doing anything with it or at least you're getting an estimate maybe and working at it from there. But it doesn't change the way I report things, because when I'm writing a major on something, it's because I strongly, strongly believe with every fiber of my being that this needs other eyes on it. Even if I'm wrong, I'm okay with that. But I believe that I'm seeing enough to say this deserves a second set of eyes.
Ray, what do you think about that? Like, what do you advise your clients if they like submitted an offer, the inspection threshold is like 5,000, and then they see a major coming up and they want to like negotiate?
I do my best to make sure they really fully understand what they're getting themselves into. And several times we received contracts, and maybe the inspection contingency was maybe $5,000. And once I had an opportunity to fully explain it to the client, they're like, "Oh my God, I don't want to do that anymore." And so we had to go back and reduce it. And we had sellers say, "Well, the only reason we accepted it was because A, B, and C." And it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Because it is a lot of money. And, I like to tell, especially families, I'm like, are you going to be willing to take care of these things? Because if you don't really have any money in a bank, and maybe it starts as a $2,500 fix, but if you are broke, essentially, a house broke, a $2,500 fix can turn into a $5,000 fix, can turn into a $10,000 fix if you really don't have the means to fix it. And so I always say, don't bite off more than you can chew. If it's supposed to be your home, it's going to be your home.
Alyssa, how long after the home inspection do the clients get the report?
I do a 24-hour turnaround. I am documenting a lot of the stuff on site, but I love to just go home and give my brain time to really synthesize all the information I collected, process it. I'll go through all the pictures one more time and then, finish the report up at home. So I like to give that full 24 hours to make sure that I'm really as present with that house and what's going on with it as possible. Ray, I just had a quick question for you, actually. One of the things that comes my way sometimes, like garages that are really messed up, and the client never got a quick, they didn't really look at it closely when they did the walkthrough, and it really isn't, they're not thinking about living in the garage, right? So it's not like the top part of their mind. And, then they're doing the inspection. I've asked the buyer's agent or the client's agent if the garage is excluded from the contract, or if there's any clause in that contract around the garage being as is. And I see a lot of buyers kind of confused around that. Is that something that I'm misrepresenting? Do you know what I'm talking about? Am I making sense here?
I do. And a lot of people like to say the garage is separate and apart. And it's like, oh, well, the inspection is not really on the garage. But the reality of it is, if the garage has a serious structural defect, that's going to have an impact on the appraisal. Because that's kind of like saying the big ass pothole in the backyard doesn't count either, that a kid could fall down and hurt themselves. Right. And so, I like to look at it as a whole, because, to say the garage is separate, that means we can just start piecing apart every single thing. You want everything to be structurally sound.
Yeah.
And so it needs to be a full inspection. And yeah.
And if it's like I said, if it's a safety hazard, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. But a lot of people forget about the garage, or clients, they don't think it's, a big deal. But the reality of it is, if it's a piece of crap garage, I would rather, in our attorney approval or our inspection period, and say maybe it costs a lot of money, let's just demo it and have them remove the trash, because it may not make any sense to fix it. And then you can get your house and, and no longer pose as a safety risk.
Right.
Alyssa, how much should the buyers expect to pay, like a range for the inspections?
Yeah. So I do base price for the inspection, which includes pests, is $425. If they want to do radon testing, that's $125. Rural properties, it's going to change a little bit depending on what kind of water samples are needed. So for most conventional buyers, they just do a bacteria that's total coliform and general bacteria. FHA buyers need what's called the FHA short form, which is testing for lead, nitrites, nitrates, and also bacteria. And then there's like this really big long one that it's the USDA, and unless you're gonna have a farm, it's a lot of information. But so those vary a little bit depending on what those needs are, and those prices are also based on the water lab fees. So, but I would say $425 to $675 is the most common range.
Okay. Okay, guys, write this down. Viewers, whoever's watching, write this down so you'll be prepared. So after the inspections are completed, everything's good. Next, we're gonna go to the appraisal. We're gonna get everything straight with the mortgage. So that one thing I'm also noticing is the appraisal gap situation. Buyers are offering a lot over asking price, but the appraisal comes in low. Can you tell us a little bit about like what the bank sees, like what you would suggest for buyers? Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I think Rashay touched base on that earlier. You never want, the lenders do not like when you're putting an offer in. First of all, I just want to touch base on that too. In this market, with the way everything is, people overbidding on these prices, you're not going to be able to get a mortgage loan if you put an offer in for $245 and the house appraises at $225. What's going to happen at that point, when it comes time to closing, the bank is going to say, we're going to do that loan for you. That's fine, but you're going to bring it down to $225, which means you're coming up with $20,000 cash to offset that. So you have to really watch. Some people get a little overexcited, I guess you could say, in the bidding wars. And a lot of times they come back to me, hey, we submitted this offer. Well, let's look and see what its value is at before we even order the appraisal and I charge you and stuff like that. In regards to, the gap, it's actually not really as bad as it seems. I've had a lot of appraisals come in. They're starting to get over appraised now. It's just because what happens is when you have the appraisals, they're going based around a community, what the community has been selling for. So when you start having higher loan prices around the community, that's going to start raising your own appraisal on that property. So it's going to vary it a little bit. Of course, every place is completely different. Every market's different depending on where you go. Some appraisals are coming in lower, some appraisals are coming in higher. It's just depending on what's selling in the neighborhood and what property you're looking at and the condition it's in. So there's a lot of aspects that go into the appraisal. I do just want to touch base on one thing too. When Alyssa was talking before, that's one of the key things. I won't even turn a mortgage pre-approval into an application until we know that inspection comes back and you are 100% satisfied. And it's just going to make the process a lot easier the way it goes. So you do the inspection, everything comes back great. We don't really have anything. At that point, I go in, I turn it over to an application, and I order that appraisal. So the biggest thing also too is to make sure that, like everybody said before, we all have to be communicating. We're all one team that actually helps everybody out. When you have a cohesive team and there's a lot of open communication, it makes the process a lot smoother, a lot easier. That goes for the realtors, the attorneys, the mortgage lenders, the inspectors, everybody's on the same page. It's a pretty good process, honestly.
I tell all my clients, sorry.
No, speak.
For all the inquiry calls, I tell the same thing you were saying, Matt. I'm like, call a bunch of inspectors, ask questions. This is a big purchase and you're putting a lot of trust in your team. Make sure you believe in them. Call a bunch of people. Go with
it. I've had a couple people that have chosen to waive inspection. Certain things, certain aspects of the residence may deem that to be okay. If it was completely gutted and they show documentation that this has been fixed, this has been done, you can clearly see that it's been remodeled. I can understand partially waiving the inspection. However, you still really want to, even though you redo the inside and the guts, you still need to look at everything else in terms of the property inspection. So even if everything's been completely rehabbed, I still tell everybody, spend the 425, spend the 500, spend the 550, because you're going to get in that house and something's going to come up down the road and you're going to be saying to yourself, I wish I did that inspection.
Yeah.
And on the, you know, in the mortgage aspect as a lender, that's the first thing I tell every person after we have that attorney approved contract. Did you schedule your inspection? That's my next question. Because that's the next step. You need to get that inspection done. So this way we can start the process. I do love that you have the quick turnaround time, honestly, because I've had some mortgage inspections come back. It takes 4 days.
Oh, Jesus.
To get an answer. And I tell them never again. So, yeah. So that's one of the biggest things. I have no choice in telling people who to go for mortgage for, you know, for the inspection.
Yep.
They choose themselves. But now that I know that you're 24 hours, yep. I know where to send them.
I'm doing one more plug for myself too. I use continuous radon monitors. They're on a cell service. They're an electronic device. I leave them in a basement for 48 hours. If the house has strong enough cell service in it, I can pull a report remotely and I never have to mail anything in and go back and get the device whenever I can or when the agent can grab it. These things are so time sensitive. I can't sleep at night when things are waiting on me. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Get it off.
So I actually have a question for Risha. Can you hear me? So when you do, for instance, you know, because I get a lot of people coming in to do pre-approvals. And I like to direct them to somebody that I know. You said you handle a lot of first-time homeowners. That's correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. So that's my biggest thing. I feel like I have some attorneys, obviously, you know, the bank attorneys, we deal with INLO law, and we have a couple other people, but it's nice that I could possibly send my pre-approvals to you and say, hey, listen, they're great, you know, with first-time homeowners. Mm-hmm. I know I've seen Wallace Turner because I'm actually working on a couple files right now where Amy actually just emailed me. I think, right, Amy Shake?
Yep.
Yeah, so I know that, you know, you guys have your name out there. So that's going to be one of my biggest things is being able, you know, this is going to make the process a lot easier when I say, hey, you need to get your home inspected, go see Alyssa. You need your attorney approved contract, go see Rashea. So, and of course, Morgan, you know, the first question I always ask, are you working with a realtor? If they say no, you know where it goes.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. But Ray, I had a question for you. So like, how do you advise your clients if the appraisal comes back low?
So we try to put a Hail Mary in our contracts. We try to get 2 bites at the apple. That being, we have the inspection period and the $1,500 threshold. But we also like to amend the contract in Section 8, other terms, to put that if, you know, we reserve our right to cancel if the property does not appraise. People hate when we put that in there. Some attorneys are bright. They catch it. Others don't. That's not on us to have people catch things. But we explain to clients during attorney approval about the appraisal. And we let them know, especially when they're first-time home buyers and they're using an FHA loan. Getting an appraisal when you have an FHA loan is essentially a second bite at the apple, because that appraisal is essentially another inspection. And that appraisal, it's going to come up with the value of the house, but it's going to maybe say A, B, and C need to be done. For example, these are things that Alyssa might not say are major, and they're not. Like, so we have some that's, you know, peeling paint. You know, that poses a safety thing, but on a major inspection report, it's probably not going to come back, but on an appraisal, it is. And so when things of that nature come back, and we have to have that conversation with the client, one of the conversations is, well, can you cover that gap? And if you can't cover that gap, which I 100% understand, we need to start thinking about ways to make this work. But one of the biggest things we always tell our client is we are protecting your deposit. because deposits are no longer $500 how they used to be 2 years ago. Now people are putting 1,000, 3,000, 5,000, and the sellers are wanting these deposits to be non-refundable. So at every part of the process, we are thinking of how we can preserve our clients' money. And so if we're talking the appraisal and our client says they don't, they can't make it up, we want to go back and forth and see if we can enter into an agreement like, okay, you fix the paint, you do this, so that ultimately those loans can be improved. And if not, we need to advise the sellers as soon as we can that we would like to cancel under the mortgage contingency period, because the reality of it is if we can't overcome that appraisal, our client is never going to get mortgage commitment, and therefore the contract is going to be null and void. And so we try to get them their deposit back as fast as possible so that they can keep moving and the sellers can find someone else.
Thank you. So Matt, after the appraisal, during the underwriting process, what should the buyers expect during the mortgage application process?
So whenever you have to realize whenever you're in a mortgage process, your average turnaround time, depending on, what you're doing with the market the way it is right now, I'm telling everybody, it's about 45 to 60 days. That's your average turnaround time, assuming you get the documents fast enough that are needed, the appraisal is done, and we get that back fast. There's no issues, the inspection's done, everything along those lines. Once the application starts, this is post-inspection. So once we get the appraisal back, everything's good at that point. Then it's going to basically get sent, to the back office. Now, as everything is getting processed too, you're still eventually going to always have your commitments that you're going to have to do at the end, which would basically be, if it's been 45 days, since we first started the app, at this point, you're getting close to the end. You're going to be need to uploading, your pay stubs, another bank statement. These are all things that they're going to continuously verify throughout the mortgage underwriting process. There may be other, commitments that need to be met depending on what type, of file and mortgage you're doing. Everything is completely different. FHA, because, it's FHA, we're sending it out, it's being underwritten actually through, the government. I always tell everybody you're looking at closer to 60 days just on that. If it's conventional, you can go a little higher after, at the 45, so it really depends on what mortgage product. It also depends on, the person's, responsiveness. If we have our, processor sending out an email trying to contact and they can't get a hold of you for 2 days, it's going to hold up the process, because that's 2 days that document could have been sent back to underwriting and been reviewed and done already. So it really depends, if you're planning on, looking at a house and making an offer and doing an application and really starting the process, you have to be ready to be focused for the next 45 days and be very responsive and make yourself available. So this way it doesn't hold the process up. If we do get that, then like I said, 45 to 60 days is usually accurate turnaround time. When it gets over 60, that's when I usually step in, I bring a manager in and I say, hey, we need to look at this process. Why is this taking 60 days? Maybe we need to put a fire under some people. Sometimes that happens. I'm the front person that basically puts everything in. I can't control processors and underwriters, but I certainly can get a little fire lit to get everything moving again.
And that's why it's so important to have a good team, because there's nothing that gets me so annoyed when I'm trying to get some answers from somebody and nobody's answering. It's a lot of waiting on people to do their jobs in this transaction. So that's just why it's so important that you know who you're working with. You have a good realtor who can refer you to good professionals that they know will make sure that this transaction goes smoothly, because it can go left real quick.
Absolutely. That's that open line of communication that you need to have. That's basically, hey, down the road, once everything's done, that's me reaching out, to the attorney, finding, hey, was title, done, everything along those lines, and keeping in communication, keeping the realtor updated too, especially. So this way, you can inform, the seller's agent. you know, because they're always going to be asking questions too. You know, they get antsy. The one thing I do notice, maybe you can answer this question since you're, you know, a realtor. I feel like a lot of times the dates are being pushed a little thin now on some of these contracts.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Have you been seeing that
Yeah,
on
I
the
do.
realtor side when you get it? I know, I'm sure you understand that happens too.
Like the commitment dates and stuff.
Yeah, you
Uh,
know, if I was today's February 8th, if I was to put an offer in, you know, it got accepted, you know, they're listing a closing date of March 15th.
mhm.
You're just like, it's not really that realistic, you know?
I just always try to be hopeful. I put hopeful dates, but it's never a guarantee. None of the dates I just realized is just never guaranteed. Hmm?
So one of the things that we do when we get those contracts and we see such a close date, we automatically, in attorney approval, generally change that date. But another thing, even if commitment is going to be at a certain date, we never waive any contingencies until you're 100% sure. So like Matt, even if you gave us commitment and you said you needed to know about my client's Discover card, you needed to verify child support amounts, I'm never going to satisfy that mortgage contingency commitment, because what if we never even get those documents? And so now that has my client at risk of losing their deposit. So we hold on to those commitments like to the death of it.
Yeah.
We never waive it. People are like, did you get commitment yet? Did you get commitment left? All the time while we're working with Matt, we're working with Alyssa, we're working with you, Morgan, to make sure that this transaction is moving. We try not to give up more than we need to give up, because we've seen we've been in situations before, and we're lucky we never waived commitment, because, like, for example, right now we have a client and she was really struggling to get a separation agreement, and that was one of the only no, that's the last condition that she needed to for everything to go be approved. But I mean, it's been taking a very long time, and we were at one point thinking she never was going to get that. So if we would have waived that contingency and she never got it, she would need to cancel the contract and she would lose her deposit. And so we hang on to it to the death of it, and they have to pull it out of us, but we really never waive.
And I just want to say something from a lending aspect. Ironically, that's really funny because that's my client. I literally fought. I literally fought so hard, literally trying to push everything through. This is the biggest thing. You want to find lenders, you want to find inspectors, and you want to find attorneys that are going to do exactly what you're saying. They're not going to let that $1,000 or $1,500 deposit go. Like she said, it's no longer $500. If you're buying a $300,000 home, you're going to expect to put at least 1% down to hold it. At least that's what they look for on like a $300,000 home. It depends. It really does. I actually just heard a conversation that, believe it or not, people are expected to put at least 5% down in the city if they want. Wow. And it's crazy that, you know, it's getting stepped up like that. But in the aspect of, you know, I'm the same way. I would never want somebody to lose a mortgage loan because they needed one document. So I will do everything in my power, if we can't get that document, to figure out ways to get this mortgage loan to go through. There's always going to be some type of way, you know, even if, you know, something happens, it's just you find ways to make it work for people. That's basically what it comes down to, especially into lending, you know. That's like, you know, I just want to touch base. I know that, you know, Morgan, you sent over a couple questions, and I knew a couple of them, you know, didn't really get answered. So I just kind of want to touch base on just a couple of them. One of the biggest ones, lender fees. A
I
lot
was
of
just
people,
gonna
you know,
ask that.
a lot of people don't really know exactly what are the lender fees. So you have to realize, you know, there's an origination fee. You're paying for underwriting. That's, you know, recording your mortgage with the government, underwriting your application. And then, you have different things. You have prepaids, you have closing costs, and you have down payment. The easiest way to explain this is your down payment, depending on what type of loan you're doing, is basically how it's calculated. So FHA requires 3.5% down. So if you're doing a $100,000 loan, you have to put down $3,500. That's just FHA requirement. They're 3.5. There are other mortgage products that require less than that. They may be 3%, which is really nice because, it's intimidating. A lot of people say, I really want to buy a house. I don't have the cash to pay for the closing costs and down payment. And that's one of the biggest things with people, they're worried about that, but there's always ways where we can come up with closing costs for you. There's grants out there. There are unsecured loans that you can actually attach to your mortgage that basically cover the same rate as the mortgage. So a lot of people, don't know about those things, but if you're really interested in purchasing a home, I always recommend consulting the lender because there's always other things out there. If you wanted to buy a home in the city of Albany, there are grants out there that'll give you money to basically cover a portion of your closing costs and down payment to help that you don't have to repay. There's grants, there's gifts out there. So you definitely have to do your research if you need help with closing costs and down payment. It's possible that you can get into a home with as little as 1% of your own money. If you were looking at a $150,000 home and you tell somebody all you need is $1,500 of your own money and I could get you in that home, what would you say? People would be like, there's no way, I don't believe it. There are ways. There's different, there's different ways. There's different mortgage products. There's different grants out there. It's there to do it. You just have to ask around, and if you came up to me and you said, I really want to buy a piece of property. I really like this house. I've been looking at it. I went and saw it with the realtor. I'm just worried I don't have enough closing costs. What I would do is I would look at the area and let you know, hey, there's an actual grant program in this area. Let's start the application process for that grant. And a lot of times you can't even do the grant until you have a signed contract anyways. So, the biggest thing that I always tell everybody is let's worry about finding a house first, and we could worry about your closing costs and down payment after. And we can see what we could do if there's a grant in the area, especially around here, Albany, Troy, Schenectady. These are all areas that have grants available. And some of these grants are huge. We're talking $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to go towards closing costs. Coming up in March, we have another program that's actually going to be starting across all of New York. It's called the Home Buyer Dream Program. Gives borrowers up to, I believe, $9,500 to do it. That's coming out March 21st. That's right around the corner. So if you have people looking at properties, it's February 8th right now. We can assume that, 30 days, 45 days, that's going to push us right to there. We can apply. It's just, there's a lot of different resources out there. People don't tap the resources. That's when you talk to me. I try to help you and save you with as much, as little out of pocket. I have somebody right now currently about to buy a home. Same thing, $150,000, probably put about $1,500 down. That's the 1% she contributed. Of course, had to pay for the inspection and the appraisal, which runs about between $400 to $600, like Alyssa said. But when you really look at the bigger aspect of it, you're getting into your home that you want for such a little amount. And it's because she took advantage of grants and gifts. And that's what people need to do. They need to really make themselves aware. A lot of the gifts and a lot of the grants have income limits. So, it depends on the size of your household. You have 3 people in your household. You have certain income limits. That's why I get you in touch with the housing agencies to basically, do a full mortgage review to see, hey, first of all, they'll go through to make sure you can afford the house as well. And they'll coach you. If you have any issues saving money, they'll coach you with that. These housing agencies are phenomenal. And as a lender, I work directly with them. I refer people over them all the time, even if it's not around here. So especially since I'm actually capable of doing mortgages in 48 states, So I try to know as much as possible about the grants in the area. So I invest a lot of time in that. That's one of the biggest things. So I think we touched base on the lender fee. Rates right now. The rates really depends on your mortgage product that you do. A 30-year conventional rate, I can quote it, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be that. And whenever I have anybody ask me, hey, what's your mortgage rate? I'm interested in purchasing a home. My honest answer is I can't even give you an accurate mortgage rate right now because there are so many adjustments based on credit score, your loan to value, your debt to income. But just know that my goal is to get you in the lowest possible rate. I don't want to overcharge anybody. I want to get you in the best rate. So you come back to me and you say, I love the process. I love what he did for me. I'm going to work with him again, which is why I work with a lot of first-time home buyers for that reason.
Matt, are there lenders out there that ask for the inspection report? Because I'm like really like I get really firm with my clients, and I'm like, do not share this report with anybody but your attorney and your agent. I'm like, keep it away from the lending side. And I think there's been a few times where they said to me, oh no, the lender's requiring it, and I am like, please tell your attorney that, and don't do anything with it until you've had a conversation with us about it with your.
I'll tell you what, if you come across anybody and they're saying that my lender's requiring it, you say, do me a favor, go see Matthew. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't think so. The one question I ask if somebody gets an inspection and they get the report back, I never ask to see the inspection because in my eyes, it's none of my business.
Yep.
All right.
Facebook if your lender asks for your report, find a new lender.
That's what I would honestly say. That I ask you my question. I do ask about the inspection. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. That's because I want to be on point with everything. And I want to know if we go forward with the appraisal or not and ordering it at that time. If you tell me, oh, they did the inspection, it's just a couple minor things, I'm ironing it out with the seller, that's all I need to hear. I'll go in and I'll do the appraisal after I know that you've ironed out those items. And we've had a couple that, when we did the appraisal, some things came back. Those items still ended up getting fixed, whether or not, the seller allowed the buyer to come in and fix it ahead of time. That's also an option, which as a lender, if it gets done, and it doesn't matter to me who does it, as long as everything gets fixed and we can move forward. But I would say that I personally do not ever ask to see the inspection. It's none of my business. I ask if you're satisfied with it.
Perfect. And Ray, is there anything from the attorney side of things, once you get the report, that you wish us inspectors did or that we could do that would make your job or your work with the client any easier?
So Alyssa, your report honestly was one of the best reports that we've ever seen because it was interactive. Yeah. We can get to the sections that we need. Yep. And so that would have been my only comment because I hate combing through a report, looking at a bunch of things that are like irrelevant. Yeah, exactly. I just need to know what the majors are and you spell it out. You spell it out perfectly. Right. We are very secretive with our inspection reports. Especially I might send them like just a section of the report so they can know exactly what the inspector said. But we don't share it because, our client has a financial, they're spending money to pay for a certain service. So we're not just going to give away a report they paid for. Yep. We're not going to do that. And if the transaction doesn't work out, the seller can do their own inspection or do something else because they're not giving our client back the $450 or whatever our client is paying. So it's like,
I love the attorneys that get that. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're a little bit selfish with certain things.
But here's the thing, right? You're looking out for your client's best interest, right? Because now the seller has that report and they're doing what sellers do and they're going to get defensive and they're going to look for anything they can do to delegitimize that report.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Ray, how much can the buyers expect to pay for the attorney fees?
So eat something else. This is not cold. So our fee, It's generally $750, but we do have a range. It's about $750 to $1,000. We would get more on the higher side if there was certain things, if there were no realtors involved, if we needed to draft the contract, if we needed to do an escrow agreement. Most things are covered, but if we have to go above and beyond and do a little bit more, but if the fee was to be adjusted upward, we let the clients know automatically. And in our letter of engagement, it spells out, different things that can make the contract, the price increase. But yeah, and so generally we're in a 750 range, which is in line with what the area is. With real estate, we can't really charge too much because, competition. But I think we should be able to, because we do an awesome job at Wallace Turner Law.
Yes, you do.
Regarding the grants, I think my firm is the premier grant firm. Everybody comes to us with a grant, and we do not eat them. And we are really great at navigating the system and getting it done, because it's a delegate process. And a lot of the larger firms, they just don't have time. They don't have time for it, or they don't have personal relationships with the grant lenders. And we do, because it's important to us to build relationships. So if we're having an issue, I can pick up the phone if we're having a grant problem and say, hey, it's me. What's going on? Can we push this through? Can we do this? And we've actually had clients, when a lot of these, at least the Thule Foundation grant first started, that we were able to surprise them with grants.
Wow.
They were, getting their closing costs together. And I know for 2 people, I submitted the applications myself.
Wow.
Which was great to do. And it was a good learning experience for us, because we know the process, we know what's needed.
And that's why it's so important to use a good team. All the buyers, you see what we got right here. Not all realtors know about the grants. One fun fact about us is that Your Home Team, we just got Virginia, who does building blocks grants. So any client that I got that's qualified is getting the grant. I don't know if Virginia's watching, but hey, Virginia, I love the grants. And I love how the attorneys, we're all got to be on the same page. We all got to be on the same page, or the transaction is not going to flow smoothly. That's just a simple fact. But it's so good that you even brought up the part about the grants, because a lot of the viewers, they think that they can't get a house. They think that they won't be able to purchase. There's a lot of programs and opportunities for grants that these buyers can take advantage of. And now that you know what attorney to use, so that when I get the grant, I'll use this attorney, so won't be no issues. Matt, I know which lender to go to. I know which inspector to go to. I already know how much I got to pay. So if you weren't taking notes during this video, then you missed out. But I'm going to post it on my page so everybody can see. But I just wanted to ask a couple questions that I got from my friends and my followers on Instagram and on Facebook. But I just got one question for you, Matt. Someone says, as a recent college graduate who has only worked 1 year, what is the best way to show income?
Yeah, so that's actually, I think we briefly talked about that before we, went on the Facebook Live, in regards to, you're in college, you graduate, let's say, like I said, you graduate with a nursing degree, and all of a sudden, you're working as an LPN or an RN. We're going to take that income. We're going to calculate, even though you've been in school, we're still going to calculate that as that you've been working for 2 years, because it's in that field. So if you are in college and you graduate and you get a job in that same field that you graduated in, you can get a mortgage. Absolutely. You just have to, like I said, you need to make sure if you've been working there for a year, you need 2 years employment. We look at that college graduate and we say, you're good still, because it's in your field. So, and then we qualify them based on the current income that they're making right now for that year.
I'm a testament to that. I was able to get a house right out of law school. It was hard to get my loan though, because I was broke, but law school did count as my work history.
That's awesome.
Yep. It's a really nice advantage that a lot of people don't know about. And like I briefly said too, the grants are another thing. You need to get with your lender and talk with your lender. If they're not trying to help you find ways to save on closing costs and down payment, you should probably start looking for another lender then, because they need to be looking at what's best for you. And you know, if you make too much money for a grant, let's look at other ways that we could save you the money, you know, make sure we get you in the right program and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different, it's a fluid movement. Everybody's situation's different. That's what I always try to tell, you know, and I don't see why there's really no reason why we wouldn't be able to get anybody into a house, honestly. So
how often does it come up where somebody's pre-qualified and then they're not able to get lending? Does that ever happen?
It does happen. It happens a couple of times depending on what they disclose on the mortgage application and to the mortgage lender. If I'm taking an application and you left something out and then all of a sudden underwriting catches it and you're already 3/4 of the way through the deal, well, the deal, it doesn't mean it's always dead. There may be ways around it. I put 3/4 of my effort in. I'm going to still fight to get you that home, even if you know, purposely left it out or forgot to tell me or whatever the reason being. I will still do my best to make sure that, you know, I exhaust all avenues to get it through for you still. Sometimes, unfortunately, the way it works, that just doesn't happen. You know, I've had people tell me that they work full-time, then they ends up being part-time, and they're actually ends up being self-employed down the road. They're like, wait a second, this isn't a W-2. This is, so it happens. It does, but I still do my best, you know, to work with them. And one of the biggest things that I've done as a lender is I have plenty of people that, you know, may not qualify for a mortgage. I work with them still. I don't just say, nope, you're declined. That's it. That's the worst thing you could do. I still work with them because I know if I'm putting in, you know, if I say, hey, let's work together over the next couple months, let's work on your credit score, let's figure out what we need to do, it works. I have people that I've been working with since July of last year, and we're about to do mortgages for them now. So it's definitely, you know, it's one of those things where you need to do the research where you look for grants and stuff like that. But the biggest thing is talk to everybody that is in the process. Talk to your realtor, talk to your lawyer, talk to your home inspector. Say, hey, listen, what do you think about this? Is everything good on this house? What's your opinion? A lot of people don't do that, you know, especially in the first time, you know, home buying. So they're very nervous in terms of the first time home buying aspect of it. I try to just tell them, listen, everybody's going to work as a team. That's the biggest thing, you know. Unfortunately, sometimes, you know, they pick their own realtors. I can't get them in front of Morgan, and then I have to work with a different team, and it's not always as fun.
I know. I like working with a good team, just knowing that I'm going to get a response back in a nice amount of time. That's one thing that really gets my anxiety going when I'm like trying to reach out to the attorneys, to the lenders, to the inspector. Where's the inspection at? Like I get nervous, I get anxiety, and I don't like that.
I remember, Morgan, you said to me, hey, I got somebody. I sent him your app. I think maybe 30 minutes later he had a pre-approval.
That was a good client. Nice and easy, no hassle, just got pre-approved, just like that.
This is too funny not to share. I just got a checklist of what I want for dinner for my partner. She slid me a piece of paper with some dinner items on it and told me to mark it. So I apologize if I'm slightly distracted. It's really funny to me. Anyway, sorry, not part of the mortgage. But you got to eat, right?
Yeah. No, you're fine. I have a question for you, Alyssa, if you're available for a quick question. Somebody said, what are the top major issues that you look for during the home inspection?
I swear, 75% of an inspection is looking at what water is doing and where it is and the impact it's having, whether it's at the roof, whether it's at the foundation, whether it's in the yard. But really, I think the biggest things, right, are like the major mechanicals of the house, the electrical wiring, the foundation, you know, the plumbing indications of, you know, older components that may be at life expectancy or may be coming up to life expectancy shortly. You know, there's things like, you know, the furnace, the age of the boiler, you know, what kind of systems, you know, the home has. And that's really just to prepare the client for, you know, where these systems currently are at now in their life expectancy and kind of as best as you can to project, you know, at what points in their living in this home, they should kind of think about, you know, maybe starting to set money aside so they're prepared. My like theory on life is we can handle anything, you know, if we're planning for it, right? So I do my best to take the information that I can gather at the house to help them plan in the future. You know, so.
Right. Thank you so much. Now, Ray, I just got one final question for you from Instagram. Do you need an attorney if you have a realtor? I know the answer to that, but I'll let you answer.
Absolutely, because we serve a different role. We are protecting your interests. We're trying to make sure this transaction is going to go smoothly. It is literally a purchase contract or sale contract for thousands of dollars. And it's so crazy how so many people wonder if they really need an attorney for one of the biggest purchases they're ever going to make in their life. And it blows my mind that they are concerned about paying $750 to do that. Because if we are talking a house, let's say it's even $100,000. Do you know how many times $750 can go into $100,000? And then when they don't get that, I tell them, do you know how much Morgan is charging you? She's charging you 2.5%. You know how much my $750 can go into that 2.5% a few times, but it's one of the biggest purchases of your life. So you better get an attorney, and you want an attorney that does real estate law and truly understands this contract and is going to make sure that their main goal is to protect your interests. You know, we want to get paid, but at the same time, we want to make sure that our clients are going to have a house that's going to be safe for their family and they're not going to have issues down the line. And so, do you need an attorney? Absolutely, because I believe that we provide value.
Definitely. So, guys, I got to wrap this up. I thank you guys really so much for doing this with me tonight. You guys provided so much good information. Before I end this live, can you just let everybody know your contact information? We'll just go one by one, say our contact info, how we can be reached, because I know a lot of people are going to want to work with this team. It's inevitable. So my name is Morgan. You already have my information. If you are watching this video, you have my information, but Morgan J is my Facebook, Morgan Johnson, licensed real estate salesperson with Hunt Real Estate. You can call my office at 518-414-5830, or you can email me at morgan.johnson@huntrealestate. And Matt.
You're on mute, Matt.
All right, now we're good.
Good.
All right, I muted it because my 6-year-old came home now finally, and he's running through the entire house like a wild man. It's shower time, so he gets a little crazy now. I actually, believe it or not, as a lender, have my own mortgage app. Makes it very easy. It's really nice. I try to tell everybody, put it on your phone. You get pre-approvals. You can share my app with everybody. You can upload your documents right into the app. If you don't have a computer, you literally can take a picture of your documents, upload it right in. You're going to basically just go to mtb.com/mgoodman. That'll take you right to my website where you can download my app. You can always call me. Cell phone number is 518-338-2856. Or you can email me, mgoodman1@mtb.com. Morgan also has all my info, so you can always bother her.
Yep, I'll send the app. You want the app? I'll send the app right to you. All right, Alyssa?
You can call or text at 518-407-5260. My email is Alyssa@Wolf Home Inspections, plural for the inspections, there's an S there. I also have online booking available. So if you want to schedule an appointment, you can go right to my website at Wolf Hollow Home Inspections and schedule everything online. Super easy. I get a lot of feedback that's like the best way to schedule. So go to the website if you want to do that, or Morgan knows how to find me.
So Rashia Turner, you guys can find us at www.wallace. I think I put too many W's. www.wallaceturnerlaw.com. All of our information is on there. We're Wallace Turner Law on Facebook and Instagram as well. And we are at 518-400-0672.
It was really
Thank you
lovely.
guys so much.
Yes, enjoyed myself. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.